Hi there. I've just finished this wing for my lovely Vanti pattern plane, and the one thing I've got left to do now is to make some wingtips. So what I thought I would do is a quick video just showing how I make the wingtips. I've cut out the wingtip shape from the plan, and I've got a series of pieces of balsa, same size, which I'm going to glue together to make a block. This is one I've done for this end of the wing. The only thing that we give in here on the wingtip is a dotted line, which is an area we're supposed to carve out, and a profile here looking cutting through there, showing how it's carved out and the rough profile. So we haven't got a lot to go on. So the first thing I'm going to do, now I've got my block, which is the basic shape, is put it onto the end of the wing in the right location and draw the profile on that. So I'll just move the camera so we can see that. Right, well, I've put my block onto the bench and I've stood the wing up vertically so that I can move my head either side and draw around that to get the line on. If I laid it horizontally on the table, I wouldn't have been able to get a decent line. So I'm just going to draw around that. I'm using a very soft lead. I think this is 3B or 4B. So if I draw around that now, I've tried to place this as centrally as possible on the block, but there's enough extra balsa that if it's not perfectly central, that's fine. Okay, so if I take that off, just get rid of the wing for a second. Right, well, you can see the nose is drawn on there fine, and also I've drawn on these back sheeting here. The central bit isn't there because on the actual wing itself I haven't put that sheeting in yet. So to fill that in, this is a rib I had spare, which is, it's not the terminal rib, but it's very close down there, so it's more or less the same shape, so I can just fill that in. And I'm not going to take this line as the definite line anyway. I will come down close to it and then I will profile it as to the wing itself. And then just finally, to fill in the last bit on this, where the aileron will butt up against it. There we go. So now that's given us roughly the right shape. So what I'm going to do now is, I've obviously already trimmed that to size. I'm now going to trim that to size so that it's we've got that profile, and then comes the tricky bit of actually taking it down to the tip itself. Well, we've now shaped our block in two planes really. We've done the plan view, which we took off the plan itself, and we've also got the side elevation, which we took off the end of the wing, principally off the terminal rib and the sheeting. Now, the plan view is slightly larger than need be, slightly longer, and that won't get trimmed to the final size until it's attached to the wing. Just the same as this, is slightly oversized, and again that will get the final sizing when it's glued onto the wing. And the same here with the aileron, because that will match the profile of the aileron, so that will need to be taken down a little bit. Now you can see I've got an arrow here, so I don't forget which way's up, and I've got an R for the right wing. What I'm trying to do when I do a wingtip like this is take out any guesswork, any decisions I have to make by having the plan view. It's there, it's on the plan, I know where to cut. Again, I know where to cut because of this. Now we start to get a little bit more where I have to start making decisions, but we have got another profile that we can use. On the actual plan itself, that was the section that went on the wingtip on the plan, and what I've done is I've cut that out, so I now know what the profile should be. I've put a line on the plan view of the wingtip, and I've also transposed that around. So now I know that that needs shaping to fit that. There's no guesswork. I know that for a fact because that's on the plan. So what I will do is I will shape that now. This isn't, I need to be careful, this isn't the widest part of the rib, so I don't want to be taking too much off here at the moment. So I'm going to carry on and keep that line and put that profile in. Once we've done that, we'll come back and have a look, and then we'll need to make some decisions about profiling this down to the final shape. But with that profile done, it should become a lot easier. I've just started planing this, and it occurred to me that there's one other reference point that I've missed out, and that is the central line down here. And we've got a clearly defined central point here on that. So what I will do is I will draw that central line in, and that will be from that leading edge there right through to the centre there. So if I do that, and then I won't take off too much top and bottom. Now this is symmetrical, so it doesn't matter which way up it goes. And I've taken off the width of the saw cut and sanded a little bit, so that's very slightly oversized. Well, I've got down as far as I'm going to go with the plane. I'm starting to get a little bit nervous that I'm going to take off too much. You can see there's still a way to go yet, but I'm going to use my sanding stick from now on, or my sanding block, whatever, and just take it down with that. It's not going to be a quick job, but this is quite coarse sandpaper, so it won't be too bad. In fact, probably surprised myself how quickly it does come off, but just checking all the time. As I'm sanding more and more off, getting to the closer to the right profile, I'm putting on my gauge, my profile gauge, and I'm just using a pencil just to mark up where I want to take the balsa from. And we can see there's two lines there now, and that's where I need to be removing some. And you can see that if you take off the pencil line, you've gone out of it. You obviously need to a little bit just to kind of smooth it in, but just a little bit at a time. I'm going to be moving to a softer sanding block in a minute because this is picking this up a bit. So, but still a little bit more to go. But you can see as we're just going to that profile there, you naturally have to kind of profile it to how it's going to be anyway. So there's not going to be much work to do to get to the finished shape. So it's quite nice really that you've gone from 3 distinctive measurements to having a finished wingtip, hopefully. Well, I've now got this central profile more or less done. That's that's pretty accurate. There's still a little bit that could come off there to make that more precise, but I think I'm not going to do that at the moment because it's really fine tuning. I'm going to finish the rest of the actual tip profile itself. Now you can see that's actually quite a nice shape. I've done that with the finer sanding block. I haven't touched this where it's a bit coarser still, but when I don't know how much this sort of shows up looking down the length of that, but you can see from that central profile, if we say that's correct, it's not much to imagine now how much we've got to take off there. You can see this bulges out a little bit, so we just need to slim that down, which will be an easy process. And the same here, just bring this down to the nose, and that should be quite an easy job. But if you look at that, you wouldn't think, just from those 3 measurements or precise measurements, gauges we had, we've almost come down to a finished wingtip without any kind of artistic license or having to think ourselves particularly, other than just kind of following the line. And now is the bit to actually take off the pieces that we haven't got gauges for, but we can see easily now by eye where we need to go. So I'll get this finished now. I now have my finished wingtip, or at least it's finished for as much as I'm going to do until the tip is actually fitted onto the wing. Sanding these pieces just kind of came naturally really once you've got that central profile done. It's still perhaps a little bit bulbous here. When we offer it up against the wingtip, you can see better. There's plenty of overlap here that will need sanding off in the final fitting, and I think that will need trimming there a little bit as well, because I don't think the ailerons are quite that long and the bull nose on the front. And yeah, a little bit more profiling perhaps, but you get a much better view of that finished structure once you've actually got it onto the wing itself. That's a little bit high there at the moment. So that is more or less finished. If you remember the profile that I was using, that I got off the plan, off for the wingtip, it had this bit that we cut out, and it showed that the actual tip itself needs to be hollowed out. Well, I have mixed feelings about that, because this tip itself is very light. It only weighs 21 grams. The most I'm going to save is 10 grams on each wingtip, and there's the risk that I'm going to damage it because I will come through if I take too much out. It's not going to be an easy job trying to hollow it out. I could use a Dremel, but I will hollow it out a little bit, but I'm certainly not going to try and get it down to that profile. I just don't think it's worth the effort. But the next job is the really difficult job, and that is to try and get to the same. So I've now got the left hand wingtip to do, but the really important thing to remember when you're doing a pair of wingtips like this, once you've got them fitted, they will never be together, so they won't be compared. Obviously we want to try and get them as similar as possible, but if they're not perfectly identical, well, I'm not sure anybody will notice.